Hey guys, and welcome to the review for Days Gone, a game developed by Ben Studios and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. The review itself, I'm sorry it's so late. I apologise. Better late than never, right? If you haven't purchased this game already, maybe you should. It's great. I loved this game. Every moment of it. Spoilers. You don't have to watch the rest. Just go and get it. That's going to be the main moral of this story. But if you need a little bit more convincing, allow me to try and do so. So the first thing I noticed when I loaded up this game was just how beautiful the world was. I mean, the weather, the handcrafted environment, just the art, the whole immersion that they bring you in this game is incredible. It truly feels like a world that has been destroyed and rid of any forms of, well, friendly life. You kind of feel alone, and it's depressing but beautiful that they can create this experience that really brings that emotion to bear while playing. You know, you're going through all these places and it feels like every location has a story tied to it. You know, whether it's the way the cars are piled up, or the bodies, or the blood, or going through houses and seeing people of how they were trying to escape and may have been interrupted. They did an incredible job crafting this world. The map is huge, and I mean probably too big. But alas, just because it's large doesn't mean it's boring. They've added a whole bunch of biomes to this area, so you can be going from a forest that's dense and hard to navigate on your bike into a desert which just allows for a lot more range of movement and freedom when progressing the map, as well as the ability to then go south, which then brings you into a snowy area, one that really changes it up. Weather, movement, visibility, they really feel and play differently to every area you go to on this map. You can tell they really put effort into keeping it into something that's doesn't just drag on too much in the one area. It really is beautiful. And so undoubtedly the next thing you'll notice, other than the freak, is the characters. And I'm really happy to say that the characters were really impressive. I wasn't expecting much when the front cover has this, gruff, depressed looking biker guy, and then you find out he's got his biker mate and you're, taking on the Wild West. I'm thinking, okay, this is gonna be Macho Man the game, right? Wrong. Yes, there's that sort of, that underlying feeling of like, yeah, we can tough this out, but the story and the emotional arcs that all these characters go through really makes you care, and it's I think it's a testament to their ability to create believable characters. They aren't just your unstoppable biker guy that can just demolish hordes of enemies. They have a purpose for being there. They have emotional turmoil, and it's something really interesting to explore. I love it. It is really impressive. I can't think of many characters, bar a couple, and I'm sure you'll know what I mean if you play it, that have really annoyed me. I mean, the dialogue can be a little bit cheesy at times, don't get me wrong, but it has a little bit of charm to it. It could be a lot worse. I thought that the characters were really well written, and they all varied in a very large way in personal turmoil and choices. Thankfully, when you're interacting with these characters, you'll most likely be carrying out the quests, of course. And I'm happy again to say the questing system in this game has been done really, really well. Your bike comes with a radio, which means they can contact you at any point while you're driving around in the wild and give you missions. They'll explain the mission and tell you most likely what needs to be done, at least in most cases, and then you can pick and choose where you want to go. There is no sort of going back to the hub location or going back to a camp and picking up, all these quests and hoping you get something that isn't, an hour-long quest line. They basically give you the gist of it. And, except for some of the side missions, which are unfortunately a little bit repetitive, but, for the main part, the questing is fresh. They always give you new and exciting things to do. Plenty of cutscenes, voice acting, animation. They do a really good job of keeping it interesting. There was no point during the questing, bar possibly an hour towards the end of the game, and I mean it did pick up again. It was probably just a lull, that I ever felt bored. I was heavily invested, and never felt like it was a chore going and picking up quests. It was very easy, and the fact that you could fast travel between camps meant that, you know, even if you did have to go back to the camp to pick up a quest, it wasn't that difficult. So the questing's great, but I know, at least for me personally, I enjoy going out into the world and doing all the side objectives first, before I focus too much on the main story. And I'm glad that Days Gone really supports this in a meaningful and satisfactory way. There is something really addictive about cleaning up this world. The world's full of freakers and bandits, and when they're there, you can basically get knocked off your bike by freakers driving past them, and bandits will set up ambushes, snipers, stuff like that to try and stop you along the road as well. You can clear bandit camps, which then stops these ambushes. You can clear nests and hordes of freakers, which then reduce their numbers drastically depending on how many you clear, obviously. But I'll tell you what, there is nothing more terrifying than coming across a horde and seeing hundreds, I mean literally hundreds, of enemies on screen at once, and as soon as they notice you and they are just sprinting at you, there is something incredibly terrifying about that. So there is a little bit of risk and reward when it comes to going out and completing these side objectives, but I can happily say they're extremely satisfying when you finally get to finish them, and that map just feels nice and clean and is so much safer to progress in. And so I briefly mentioned the hordes, but I think that in this game they are truly one of the most special and unique gameplay aspects I've ever seen in a survival game like this. To see so many enemies on the screen at once, and for them to be sprinting dead at you, is terrifying. But it also presents this dynamic challenge. Because they move around the map, nighttime they're out feasting on corpses, they're out drinking or moving around between locations, and during the day they're sleeping. Creates this sort of feeling of hunter and hunted. The amount of times I drive around a corner and almost go head first in a horde of, you know, hundreds of enemies, and just that you can feel the blood running out of your face when you realize that they're just inches from your bike. It's terrifying. You don't hate the game for it, you know, it doesn't feel unfair. They're just naturally doing what they want to do. But then tackling them then means that you have to approach them carefully and plan. And if you don't, you can have a very hard time of taking them out. I love a challenge that is only harder depending on how much effort you put in. It's very rare that there isn't just specific guidelines and say, do this, and this to finish this challenge. It's anyone can finish this, but it is going to be incredibly more difficult if you don't set traps, plan your exit, run with ammo, you know, different guns, different situations, pick the perfect location or attack in their routine. I love that. And it is so satisfying when you finally defeat one and you get to go and collect their ears, which is a strange currency in this game. But hey, you know, God only knows what kind of strange currencies the world will have in the post-apocalypse. I guess it's like easier to get than bottle caps. Anyway, so how do you become strong enough to fight these? There's ways to upgrade your character. So probably the most basic would be your experience. You get experience from killing enemies, completing quests, doing objectives, all that normal stuff you'd expect. You have 3 skill trees which will affect your melee, your survival, and your shooting abilities. So you can pick and choose what best suits your playstyle and devote those points to enhance your combat capabilities. Other than that, when you complete objectives in a camp's, I guess you'd call it territory, biome, that then gives trust towards that camp. And with that trust, there are 3 levels. Once you unlock each of those levels for that specific camp, you'll unlock camp-specific weapons, which then, the higher the level, the better the weapons, and you know, the more stuff you'll have to do for that camp to get them, of course. But this then generates this risk versus reward. When you kill enemies, they'll drop ears, and those ears can be turned in at any camp, and they'll give you reputation, as well as hunting animals, collecting herbs. These are things that you can pick and choose to donate to one of these camps, which will then obviously increase that trust there as well. So you can see a weapon or something that you want to purchase at a specific camp means that you can then focus on spending all your effort on that, as well as obviously the objectives. I like this system, but tier 3 definitely feels a little bit too hard to get to. It never really feels like you just get there naturally. The first 2 tiers are generally pretty easy. It's just that last tier, but I can forgive them. The weapons they give you are pretty damn overpowered, so I can't really fault them for just locking them away a little bit more difficult than, you know, your lesser weapon set. But unfortunately, it's not all rainbows and lollipops. Days Gone's great, and I love it, and I would recommend it to anyone, but it's not without its faults, and there are a few. I said the world's huge, and it is. It's massive. It really did kind of blow me away at the sheer scope of this place. But is that really a good thing? There's definitely points, especially once you unlock a zone that you may not know is in the game. The beginning of that feels like a whole new adventure, like you're starting a DLC or a sequel. And that initial sort of hitting you when you feel like you're about to finish the game, it really gives you that sense of just bloated, like you just want to push through it, just reach that credit scene, you know? That said, you can't say it's not value for money. There is so much to do in this game, and you know, I loved The Witcher 3, and I quit that game 3 times because there was so much content that I just got burnt out. And I think that this game's very similar in that way. It's not necessarily bad content, there's just so much of it that you can definitely feel yourself straining at certain parts to just push through it. But once the story grips you, once the characters grip you, and you really do get pulled through that ending quick, and it is satisfying, I can say, at least. Gameplay wise, I think one of the things that I dislike the most is the fact that the trust system, it does feel grindy. Like there is no real reason for things to be locked behind, you know, I guess reputation bars. I would have loved it if you could go out and explore and find these weapons and unlock them, you know, different ways, whether it's be defeating a bandit camp and finding the weapon there, or, you know, crafting them, collecting the materials required to build something, getting blueprints, just feeling like everything's locked behind this artificial bar that it feels more like an MMO than this fun natural progression system where it rewards you for exploring, and it doesn't really reward you at all for exploring. Apart from clearing nests and killing hordes, getting your crafting materials, for the most part, I found myself maxed out across the board. I never really felt the need to get off and go searching through buildings or going into that spooky place, risking my own sanity and jump scares for you know, a bottle of kerosene or some rope. I definitely feel like it was a wasted opportunity for locking so much behind it. I can see why they did it, but at the same time, this beautiful, gorgeous world they built feels wasted because there isn't enough in it worth exploring. And so exploring, as disappointing as it is, sort of also feels necessary, since melee in this game requires you to basically repair your weapon after killing like a handful of enemies every time. And in order to do that, you need scrap, which generally, unless you want to, you know, break your weapon, which for the most part, the best weapons in the games are the ones you find and not craft yourself, melee-wise, means that you're always wanting to keep it repaired. which means going to those places and looking for scrap. It feels more like a chore than it does this sense of joy and wonder of wondering if you'll find something cool and unique behind every corner or in a chest, or there's no sense of reward for exploring as much as it just being a necessity. And that said, melee in itself feels sort of wasted. The fact that you can only target a single enemy with a melee weapon means that when you're fighting all these groups of enemies, you don't really see the use in using a bat or a axe bat or a nailed bat or a super nailed axe bat, because as soon as you're fighting one guy, you've got so many more on you that there is no big sweeping hits, which would have been awesome. I don't know why they didn't add different combat styles in melee. It feels like the shooting was what they really fleshed out and gave a lot of variety there, which is good. I enjoyed the variety, but I found myself never using melee in this game. It just felt underwhelming. Another issue I have is the tutorial, or the lack thereof. There was so much in this game I had no idea you could do until it was shown to me in load screens. The tutorial covers the bare bones. When going with Bruiser early game, he'll show you a lot of mechanics and explain how to do a lot of different things, but there is still so much they don't touch on but expect you to read in the little pop-up tips. And I mean, they probably knew the load times were so horrendous that you'd probably learn enough waiting for them to load. I found myself having to reach for my phone for load times that took up to 10 minutes. And not to mention the fact that there was a load screen just to get to the main menu to then launch the game, that took just as long as to load into the game itself. They have patched these, and they are better, but not perfect. They are constantly working on it, so I give them credit for that. I'm glad that they are taking on these issues and not just ignoring them like a lot of other games do. That's not to say that optimization is the only thing they need to work on. I did experience a game-breaking bug which really put a dampener in my spirits when playing this game, in which I had finished literally everything I could do, but there was one story mission that my bike just wouldn't move. And so I couldn't finish the mission because it was a cutscene which has auto driving, but I wouldn't auto drive, I just sat there, which sucked. Eventually it was fixed, and I loved the game, and I must admit that when I couldn't play the game, yes, it was frustrating, but all I wanted to do was keep playing it. It wasn't a moment of this game sucks and I don't want to play anymore. If anything, it reinforced the fact that I really enjoy it and I just want more. I want to get past this bottleneck to experience the rest. And to me, at least, that's a good indication of a good game. If a game can say, sorry, you can't play anymore, there's a bug in your way, and I'm there saying, please let me play more, I love it. It's kind of good, can't be that bad, right? That said, optimization's pretty bad. Like I said, I'm playing on a Slim, not a Pro. And this game definitely feels like it was built for a Pro. The frame rate is bad. As soon as I'm on my bike and I'm driving more than half the top speed, even on the base level 1 engine on your bike, you chug along. The frame rate can drop down to single digits very easily. And it does get worse the more you upgrade your bike. Having a friend who does play this game on a Pro never really experienced those issues. So I think it just comes down to a lack of optimization for the Slim. But again, they say they're working on that, and I was yet to see any real improvements. But hopefully, if you haven't picked it up yet, and again, despite all this, I still think you should, hopefully they fix it by then. Because that was really the only thing that really took away from this game overall in a way that would make me not recommend it if I didn't think they were going to fix it, because it does suck. But like I say, all these bugs, all these issues, It doesn't matter how bad the frame rate got. It doesn't matter how game breaking the bugs got. I just wanted to play more. And to me, that's a pretty damn good game. So all in all, it felt like a pretty damn good adventure. A long one at that. Something I'd liken it to Red Dead 2. If you've played Red Dead 2, I think you'd know what I mean by just sort of the length of the adventure. It doesn't feel like a story, it feels like you're experiencing life events for these people. It is a hefty adventure. You know, going, especially the whole camp to camp movement and progressing through the world at sort of an organic way. It definitely did feel like you're experiencing something more than just a short story. And I loved it. I did. Like, it really felt like you were being taken on a journey and not just shown a story. And I mean, if you've played the original Red Dead, they had an undead expansion. I don't see them doing that for Red Dead 2, so this might be the closest you'll get. So to finish it off, Days Gone feels like too much of a good thing. And that may be a bad thing for some people, but I think for the majority, the sheer amount of content here is great. I mean, if you're gonna spend the money, why not get a lot for it? And it's not bad content. It's just more of the same. More good, enjoyable things to do. This was one of the only games that I truly wanted to platinum in a long time, regardless of how much there was to do and how big the world was. And yes, the story felt bloated at points, but here I am wanting to max everything out. And so overall, Days Gone felt a little bit bloated. Yes, maybe a little bit too much of a good thing, but at least you can't say you didn't get your money's worth. And I still wholeheartedly recommend this game. The good so much outweighs the bad that I think that anyone who makes the risk to purchase this game will find at least some sort of enjoyment. The characters are great, the world is gorgeous and immersive, the things you do are fun and meaningful, and it's just a good game. I hate that so many people are holding it up there with Last of Us and God of War as this title that has to just gleam in every way, form and shape. It's just a good old style game from maybe a past era, but I feel like that's what we need right now. There's so many games as a service, and this is just a whole package. No DLC, no expansions, no microtransactions. You just get a massive package of good fun content. And when those credits rolled, I had the biggest smile on my face and I watched every minute of it because I was genuinely satisfied. I never at one point regretted this purchase, even when I couldn't play because of game-breaking bug. And so, I give Days Gone an 8.5 out of 10. I wanted to give it a 9 so bad, but the bugs, the performance issues, all these things they're currently working on were still there when I played, and to say they didn't impact my experience, I'd be lying. But that's not to say that I don't strongly recommend you try this game. Any way, shape or form. If you can find a way, borrow it from a friend, just give it a go. I think that you'll find more enjoyment in this than you may think you will. But I think the most exciting thing about Days Gone is the potential for a sequel. The crazy things they could pull off with this franchise brings me so much excitement. Like the mechanics with the hordes, the world building, the new technology coming on next gen consoles, the stuff they can do is mind-blowing and the possibilities are endless. So I really hope you guys check them out, give them that support, show them that there is a market for this title so that we can get something absolutely mind-blowingly great. Because I guarantee you, if this is their first attempt, and let me just say, Ben Studios hasn't been, producing massive, AAA titles. This is their real genuine attempt at breaking into that market. show them some love. Honestly, because you can tell they have a vision for something much bigger than this, but they just need you to help them. As always, guys, I love you so much, and thank you for sticking through with me to the end. It's been a little bit longer, this one, but I love you guys regardless. Until next time, I'll see you then.